This video is going to show some new features that we have added to the latest version of Qimage One to help users lay out the prints more easily on the live view. So we have our live view set up here for this printer. We've selected our printer settings, and let's say we go ahead and add a print. There it is on the live view as we expect. If we click on the print to select it, we can see some information about the print, such as its size down here. And down in the bottom here we can see its left and top position that refers to this top corner here. Now so far we have some choices. We can resize the print by dragging on a corner, and we can see the size down the bottom is updated. And we can also move the print around on the screen. And finally we can actually type in the coordinates of where we want the print to appear. We've listened to input from our users and come up with some of our own ideas to improve laying out the prints on the live view even further. And I'm going to show you the first thing that we've added is if you go up here to the View menu, click on this new Rulers menu item, you'll see that you get rulers down the left hand side and along the top. And here we have marks at 1 inch, 2 inch, and so on, and you can see that we have ½ inch and 1/8 inch ticks. And this makes it useful now when moving prints around because you can see exactly where the print lies on the paper. And similarly, if I go and I change the units to metric, we now have every centimeter marked. And again, as I move around, you can see where the print would line up with these imaginary rulers on the edge of the paper. Now, in addition to the rulers, we also added a grid menu item. And if we turn this on, you can see that this very fine grid spreads all across the paper. And again, as you move the print, you can get an idea of where things are, and I'll show you this in inches, and we have the major whole inches marked, and then we have a slightly finer line in between, so that as you're moving around you get a sense of where the ½ inch marks are, where the whole inch marks are. Now before I move on to the next part, I'm just going to make sure that this is at exactly 2.5 and 2 inches, and I'm going to reset the print size to be 4.25 by 2.25 inches. And the reason I want to do that is you'll notice that the top left corner of this print is now on our grid lines, while this bottom right hand corner here is not. It's right in the middle. So if we go up here, we have a new menu now called Snap. And right now Snap is off, and we have options to set Snap to ½ inch, 1/4 inch, and 1/8 inch. So let me pick ½ inch, and I want to show you what happens if I now click on the print and move it around. You'll notice that I don't get that smooth movement anymore because the print is locking to the grid that I have displayed on the screen. In fact, the grid doesn't have to be on. I can turn it off, and you'll see that it still locks to every ½ inch. You can see down here in the bottom, these numbers are locking to every ½ inch. And as I continue to move around, you'll see that on the ruler, that the edges of the print will always align to the snap that you have defined. I'm going to turn the grids back on for a second just to demonstrate something. It's the top left corner which is snapping to the grid, but the reason I wanted to pick this unusual size is if you click close to the bottom right corner and you start to move that around, you will see that that corner is the one snapping to the grid. And likewise, if I pick bottom left, that will snap, and top right will snap to the closest snap point as well. So this gives you a lot of flexibility in how you want to align things. And just for completeness, if we switch back to metric, we will now get options to snap to 10, 5, or 1 millimeters. And as we move the print around, you can see it is snapping to the whole top left corner, is snapping to the whole centimeters on the ruler. And likewise, if I move the bottom right, that is the point that's snapping on the ruler here. In addition to moving prints around and snapping to the grid, we can also do the same thing for resizing. Let me turn back to inches, and we'll lock the top left corner to 1 inch by 1 inch here. Now watch what happens if I start to resize. If I start to resize to the right, notice that again the motion is not smooth, but the size is locking to the snap that I've provided, which is ½ an inch. Now if I want the bottom to snap, in other words if I want to make the height a multiple of ½ inches, I just drag this way. And now you can see that I'm snapping to 5, 5.5 inches, etc. And this works for every corner. So if I drag from this corner, make it a little bit smaller, when I drag outwards, you see that as I go to the left, I'm snapping to the half-inch marks, and as I go up, I'm snapping to the half-inch marks as well. So with the addition of the rulers, the grid, and snapping, you can get some very fine layouts and really control how you want things to look. So let's start over and see how we could practically use this. If we add some prints now, using the IntelliCenter layout, just going to add 3 prints like this, we'll see that we get the layout that Qimage One gives us by default when we're trying to save space. But maybe we're trying to do something a little more creative. Perhaps we need to lay out the prints to go inside of a mat, or we're just trying to see how we can make things look more interesting. Now that we have the grids and the snapping, we can start moving prints around so that they have the same spacing all the way around the paper here, since we have 8.5 by 11 inches. And if we drag this print up to this corner, we can now also experiment with seeing how the print would fit on the paper. And you see this gives us a print size of 4.5 by 7.5 inches, which is not something we might have used because it's not in the list of print sizes unless we define it as custom. But by moving and resizing prints on the live view, we can see that we get something that's pleasing to the eye in terms of spacing using sizes that we may not have thought of. Then from here we can go one step further and think about adding some borders to these prints. So I'm just going to pick a color here and set a border, and I'll do the same for these 2 prints. Pick a different border color here. These border colors are not great, but it's just as an illustration. And even though the prints have now moved a little bit, it's very easy to slide them back over and snap to the previous positions. And the reason that adding the border shifted the print was that it makes a print a little bit wider and taller. But now that we've positioned them back here again, we once again have a pleasing layout. So using the new rulers, grids, and snapping, you can get a lot more control over the live view and your completed output.